Save me from my superstitions. Now I'm free from this old condition.
I do miss playing intimate venues, but I also love playing massive venues as well. You know, I mean, it's kind of hard to do something like Wembley Stadium and go, oh, I wish I was playing in the Cavern Club in Exeter. You know, I like it all. You know, I think they've all got something very different to offer, and you know, although you're playing the same songs and it's ultimately the same band, the experiences of playing in all these different types of venues are completely different. You know, festivals feel completely different to stadiums. You know, similar amount of people outdoors, but it feels completely different. You know, and arenas feel completely different to playing in venues of this kind of size. The time we did an arena was supporting the Chili Peppers. I think it was in Paris was the first gig at the Bercy, which was 18,000 people. And we were first on. There was us, the Foo Fighters, and the Chili Peppers. So at the time for us, it was not long after the first album came out. You know, it was enormous. You know, the kind of thing you could only ever dream of doing. And I can remember being at the back of the stage, and obviously I think the venue was probably only half full at the time, and we had a 25-minute slot. And that moment when the lights went down and I heard the volume of 10,000 people cheering all at once was like, wow, it was so loud. You know, I couldn't believe it. And I think that's what you get when you play in stadiums. You know, you're talking about 70, 80,000. When you hear 70 or 80,000 people singing along to one of your songs, it's quite impressive. You know, it's you know, when the crowd almost become the band, it's such an amazing thing to be a part of. And yeah, you don't quite have that intimacy, but it gets replaced with that, which is, you know, equally satisfying, I guess. You know, we actually did a few small gigs for the last album, and I think it was the first time in quite a while, and you know, just went on stage, and for the first time in a long time, you know, no screens, no real, you know, just a very basic light package, and it was amazing. it was one of those gigs you come off stage and be like, wow, you know. It was, you know, partly, it's slightly nostalgic in a way because it reminds you of what where you came from and the gigs that we used to do, but I don't know, there was something about the crowd response that was really different. I'd kind of almost forgotten what it was like to play in a place like that, where, you know, as much as the screens and all the production stuff that you have in the big venues, it looks really, really impressive. And it's a big part of the show when you're playing in a bigger room or in an outdoor gig. But there's something about just being in a small room, and all that really matters is what's coming out of the speakers. I remember pulling up outside the venue. I don't think we'd ever played there. I think it was our first tour of North America. And it was kind of strange for us because we'd just come off the back of doing fairly big arenas throughout the UK and Europe. And we were starting from scratch again in America because we were back down to playing 400, 500, 600 capacity venues. And it was great because, you know, we obviously love playing in arenas, but to go back and experience that thing of playing in clubs again, you know, 6 years since starting was pretty amazing. But I think on that particular day we'd arranged to do a photo shoot in the venue. I think this was down by the toilets, and there was all these kind of weird hippie kind of colours everywhere and weird imagery going on. And I think we'd had quite a late poker night on the bus and everyone was really, really hungover. I think Matt's probably got a bit of makeup on there to cover up those bags. But yeah, it was quite a painful thing. I think we had to squeeze it in before the sound check and stand by some smelly toilets and do a photo shoot whilst we were all really, really hungover, and it wasn't much fun. But the gig was amazing. Well, I think we first became aware of Storm Thorgerson probably because of Pink Floyd. And I mean, to be honest, growing up, I don't think Pink Floyd were a band that we particularly listened to, but when we made our first album, John Leckie was the producer was constantly saying there's certain bits about our band that reminded him of Pink Floyd, which kind of prompted us to look into Pink Floyd and listen to some of their stuff, which obviously led us to the album covers and the artwork, which is where we first heard of Storm Thorgerson. And I think it was Absolution, the third album, where we actually approached him to potentially do the cover. And he just had such a great way of working, you know, his whole philosophy about you know, just using raw photography with no effects, and creating, you know, photographs that kind of look like they've been affected, but actually they haven't. And I know the Absolution cover, it was quite an interesting day because he wanted to find somewhere that kind of looked like it was on another planet, and trying to create this illusion of all these kind of souls flying away and create these shadows on the ground, and turned up at these clay pits somewhere on a really sunny day. It was literally like 20 huge great cardboard cutouts of obviously the shadows on the album, which I just thought was amazing. You know, I wasn't really expecting that. And then you see the photograph afterwards and it just looks incredible. You can't believe that it's actually just a normal photo with no treatment. I think it was six months or so after the album came out, he did three prints of just, you know, massive prints of just the photograph without Muse or Absolution on it. So it was great because I felt like I could put that on my wall without looking like I was advertising my own band in my own house. Obviously, sadly, he passed away last year, and I think it's a big loss. You know, I think he's done so many iconic images that even people who don't realise they know him. So that was our first time headlining Reading, which was great because Reading was the festival we always used to go to as kids. I think I went in '94 and '95, and it was always that kind of dream of like, oh, you know, it'd be great one day if we could get big enough, even just to play at Reading, let alone headline it. So I think that was a fairly special night for the band, I think. It's always pretty terrifying when you have this stuff going on. I remember we did Reading and Leeds in 2011. They nearly stopped the show because the Reading and Leeds banners that they hang over the PA, they all caught on fire mid-set. We weren't aware of it until afterwards. But it was that hot. I think there was like 4 big blasts, and we had to keep it a certain distance away from the crowd, obviously, which meant putting it closer to us on the stage. And I can remember that thing going off, and it was proper singed eyebrows and, you know, no facial hair left or anything like that. So it's pretty scary. Well, it's quite interesting this because we were on this tour, and again it was one of the first proper tours we did in North America, and it was great because Cure were obviously the headliners. It was called the Curiosa Tour, and they kind of played in the main venue, which was like outdoor sheds, and then they had a B stage that was kind of in the car park on the back of a truck, and we were on the back of the truck. And there was a few other English bands that were playing as well, and Cooper Temple Claws, who kind of came out around the same time as us, were on that, and we'd done tours with them in the UK. So we started because we were finishing the gig so early, we started an after-gig football thing, and basically arranged these football matches in the car park. And as the tour went on, it grew. So it started off with just the English bands, and then all of a sudden the American bands were sort of joining in, and towards the end of the tour, it had gone from a small kickabout to like full 11-a-side football matches in a car park. And I spoiled it for everybody by breaking my wrist about 4 gigs towards the end of the tour. I think it was Fisher from the Cooper Temple Claws. We both went for a 50-50 tackle, slipped over, put my arms back and crack, and didn't realise what I'd done at the time, carried on playing football, and ended up in hospital the next morning when I woke up because I was in so much pain and I'd broken a bone in my wrist, which is about the worst thing that can happen to a guitar player or bass player or drummer for that matter. And it was about 2 weeks before we were headlining V Festival as well, which made it even worse. So we ended up having to get Morgan, who now plays keyboards for us. He filled in for me for a couple of shows until it got better. Basically, that was the end of the tour for us. We didn't finish our little bit of it, and I think we were on a flight home the next day, straight to Harley Street. You know, I've got tons of stuff actually, because my iCloud is there. Loads of embarrassing stuff because the kids use my iTunes. We got all sorts. Lots of Beach Boys, Cable, brilliant band. See, that is definitely not mine.